Welcome to my first ever monthly journal setup in a traveler-sized notebook. I'm going small in 2026, which is forcing me to adapt some of my old favourite layouts that I want to bring with me into the new year, and really think about how I want to use the space on each of my pages. That means when it comes to decorations, I'm going back to basics. And basics for me means washi tape and flowers. Hi, I'm Erin, and I've been keeping my DIY creative planner bullet journal thing since 2017, which means I'm now in my 8th year. And I've always been pretty loyal to A5 as my notebook size, but I just was feeling the pull towards something smaller for 2026. It felt like simplifying. Let me know in the comments down below what size journal you're using for planning in 2026. I have some other journals in my lineup that are much bigger than this one, but for my day-to-day things, I think this one's going to be a really nice fit. The part of the creative planning process that involves decorating your pages is really what keeps me coming back to it. I really enjoy this part of the journaling process, so it's not something that I'm willing to leave behind anytime soon. But I may find I need to be a little bit more sparing in this notebook just because of the lesser page real estate than I'm used to. So we're starting out with my cover page here. This is for January, obviously, because that is the month that we're about to head into, or possibly already have by the time you're watching this, depending how quickly you click on a video. I'm going with a black brush pen for all of my titles and headings in this setup, which is something I used to use all the time when I first started out, and then I got a bit more colourful with things. And it hadn't even really occurred to me that this is also a back to basics move for me, but that feels right. I really just picked black because it will go really nicely with the washi tape sticker set that I've chosen to decorate this theme with, which is this one here. It's called Auric Rose and it's from the Washi Tape Shop. It was very kindly gifted to me. It has this beautiful gold reflection on it. It is just stunning. And it's been a while since I've used washi tape stickers like this. I forgot how they just melt into your page. The notebook I'm using also has off-white paper. This one is from Notebook Therapy. It actually came with their lucky bag, the mystery thing that they do every year, in 2024. So I've had this one in my stash for a little while. It's just so beautiful the way these stickers blend into this page color. It's making me so happy. Just those stickers on their own weren't quite enough for me though, so I'm reaching for one of my gold standard Old Faithful skinny solid color washi tapes, and I've cut a Dutch door out of my first page here, which was a bit of an interesting move on my part given I've already got a lot less paper to play with, and I didn't really think this through too well, so when I cut off some of the pencil planning I'd done on the following page, and I kind of had to reroute a little bit. It's okay, we worked it out, but I did cut off part of what would have been my calendar. I'm going to blame the heat. It is summer for us here in Australia and it gets very hot in my part of Australia and I just don't function very well when it's hot, so let's go with that. It's summer's fault. Yeah, that's what it is. Those of us who prefer to be very utilitarian in the way we approach our creative journaling practice might choose to skip including a cover spread like this or just take it down to a single page, and that is so valid. There is no right or wrong way to do this kind of thing. But I thought I'd give you a bit of context around why I like to include a full page like this. Let's just have a moment for that reflection, that gold shine. It's so beautiful. Mostly for me, it's because the setup of the cover spread is kind of a meditative process. It gets me in the zone thinking about what I'm going to be doing in the coming pages. It kind of teaches me how to use the stationery that I'm going to be using, which sometimes means my cover spread ends up a bit ugly, but that's okay. I think this one is fine. And it sort of makes my life feel like it is passing in chapters the way a book does. So this is the chapter of January, and there's something kind of romantic about that. I like that idea. Anyway, we're on to the calendar spread now, so let's stop talking about the cover spread. I had to switch rulers because the pretty one I chose that looks nice with the theme wasn't quite long enough for what I actually wanted to do in practicality. It could have been done, but it would have been a lot of ruler sliding, and I thought this would make my life easier. And I'm using the Tom Studio Ren pen. I have it in the blush colorway, which was just too beautiful and too perfect with this theme to not use as my fine liner. It's not something I usually use it for, or at least I haven't historically, but I really enjoyed using this pen for this setup, so you might see it featuring in my bullet journal, creative journal practice more and more often in the new year. As always, there are links to all of the items I'm using in this video down in the description in case you want to get your hands on anything for yourself. Some of those links are affiliate links, so if you use them to make a purchase, I will make a small commission, but it won't cost you any extra on your purchase. And it does help to support me and my channel, so your support's always greatly appreciated. This Auric Rose set from the Washi Tape Shop, is kind of a throwback to what they used to do a little bit, especially this one. They have this solid strip repeating pattern washi tape. I really miss solid strip repeating pattern washi tapes from the washi tape shop. They used to do the most beautiful collections of them. And I think we're all sleeping on just like a washi tape, right? It's all about the PET pre-cut stickers, and even, you know, the stickers in this set as well are pre-cut, and that's lovely, and it makes it very easy to decorate in different sized spaces and things. But I'd so love to see a return to just beautiful washi tape sets like we used to see in the past from the washi tape shop. That would bring me so much joy. Apparently, I want back to basics in all areas of life for 2026. Can we make 2026 the year of the beautiful washi tape set? Since I chopped off part of my left page here and made my calendar space that I had available to me a little bit smaller, I've ended up making the Thursday box, or the Thursday column rather, of my calendar go across the center of the page. I don't love doing that. I usually try to avoid it, but in this case I didn't leave myself a great deal of choice, and I really wanted the Dutch door to be pretty on the right side when the cover page was flipped that way so you wouldn't see the calendar peeking out, so this was the way it had to be. Now that I've used my solid pink washi tape a little bit on the calendar page, I thought it made sense to add it to the cover page a little bit more too, just to tie those two together, and I really like how that looks. I'm balancing out the flowers in the top left corner above the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday with some tiny stickers, and then we're all set for the calendar spread and we can move on to the next one. This spread is coming along from my 2025 journals, but it's getting a little upgrade because this one used to just be a single page for itself in my A5 journals. This one has gone by many names. One of my lovely members suggested Action Dashboard, which I think is really good. Sometimes I just call it my goals page, even though it has other purposes on it too. It's mostly about looking forward at the month ahead and thinking, where do I want to be when it's over? I'm a pretty go with the flow kind of gal. I obviously like to plan, or I wouldn't be setting up a planner that I completely DIY. And I like to set some goals, but I don't tend to hold myself to them too intensely. I do find that what I want changes over the course of a year, so having my goals section divided into these little monthly snippets is really good for me because it means I can readjust and course correct as I move through the year, and that's a nice thing to do for yourself, I think. So my goal section gets the top left quadrant of this spread. Across from it on the right side is my anticipating section. I forgot to dot an I there, sorry about that. I'll work it out, it's okay. And on the lower half of the page, this one is for favorites. So anything that I'm really enjoying in the month of January, I can keep a little snapshot of it there, and that's fun to look back on in the future. And on the other side, we have working on, which might sound kind of similar to goals in theory, but actually that's not really the way I use this section. So rather than being about goals that might be more measurable, like hitting a certain target or something, I'm using the working on section more for intangible things like changing my mindset, things that I don't necessarily need to tick off at the end of the month and say, yes, I did that. It's just kind of a case of this is where my focus is for the month. It can also be a place to keep track of long-term projects that you're working on as well that you may not necessarily complete in a single month. This is the 090 Tombow, which is the opal colour, and it's showing up a lot more hyper on camera than it really looks in real life. It looks a bit more like highlighter orange here. It's much softer. It's actually a really nice match for the yellows and oranges that are in this tape, so hence why I chose it and paired it up. But for some reason on camera it's looking quite intense, so just know it doesn't look that intense in real life. I'm adding some of the smaller stickers from my tape sets to really fill in the gaps around those headings, and then this spread will be done and we can move on to the next one. I'm actually so surprised by how this spread has adapted into the smaller journal. This was really easy to move in, maybe because it's the same setup I was doing in the A5 journals and I just don't have as much room on the left and right sides of the spread anymore, which is kind of fine and easy to deal with anyway. This is my content planner spread, and the way this one is set up is something called the Alistair method, or a rolling task list, where you use the same workflow every time you complete a task, and therefore you can kind of make the list once and then just check off everything each time you do the thing. I have not been posting as much in December as I usually would. I kind of decided to take a little bit of a rest at the time of year that most people do. Usually I push really hard through December, but it was nice to just kind of relax and spend time with family this year. And there's a big folk festival right after Christmas that I attend with my dance group every year as well, so it's been busy, and I decided to just be nice to myself and be like, you know what, you can have a little rest. And that's been absolutely glorious. But I am planning to kick things back up into regular speed in January, so for my content planner, I've left space for 2 videos a week, which is what my standard usually is. So each of those videos gets its own column, and the space on the right, it's a little bit wider. That first column is where I put the tasks that I have to complete to make each video go live. Not all of them are necessary for every video. I don't necessarily need to add voiceover to something that was shot as like a talking head kind of a thing, but just in general, I like to keep everything ready so that if I move things around, it's all still there and relevant. I do also plan out my content in a Google Calendar because before the month I tend to move things around a lot, but once we get into the month they tend to stay somewhat where I left them, so it works well to then move them into a paper format like this. At least for my brain. Paper always works better for my brain. For now, I'm going to leave this spread here, but we will come back to it at the end and add just a few finishing touches because there were a few things I hadn't quite worked out how hard I wanted to decorate yet, and that was something that I needed to finish the setup and really flip through it to see where those gaps were and what I wanted to do with them. We've moved on to a new spread actually. This one has not been included in any of my journals before. It's kind of a take on a reflection spread, but it's all about learning. So this one is called What I Learned This Month. Pretty self-explanatory, I guess. It's right there in the name, but there are a few different ways you can approach this kind of thing. Obviously, you can just write a long-form journaling kind of thing at the end of the month, or you can add little bullet points as the month goes on and be like, oh, I just learned this thing. These can be academic, they can be life lessons, they can be a song that you just learned to play on guitar if that's something that you're working on. Anything at all could go here, but something else I think would be really fun would be to kind of doodle or even mind map this spread, so that rather than just a block of text, it's something a bit more visually interesting at the end of the month. I think that could be really cool, and that will work best if it's something that you come back to repeatedly over the course of the month rather than doing it all in one go. One spread, so many ways to approach it. I think this one's going to be really fun, and it will also be a nice kind of mindfulness and educational activity to look back over the month and be like, no, what did I actually really learn this month? About myself, about the world, about science, about nature, about someone I already thought I knew really well and I learned something new about them. Anything could go down here. It could be a really fun time. I think it will be a really fun time. I am a repeat offender when it comes to placing stickers and deciding I want to move them. I'm doing it quite a bit in this setup, but thankfully these washi stickers, they really do peel up quite nicely. Onward now to the first of my weekly spreads, and this first one's actually only going to have a few days on it, only 4, because this is the beginning of the new year and it's a bit weird. I usually like to have my weeks go from Monday to Sunday, but 2026 starts on a Thursday and I don't want to have half of my week in one journal and half of it in another one, so I'm going to just start with this single spread that's divided into 4, and this is just going to do the 1st, 2nd, 3rd and 4th for me. And after that, we'll go into the regular weekly spreads that actually cover a whole week. In case you're new to this whole creative planning thing and you're like, what's a weekly? If you've ever used a pre-printed planner that had one of those week to a page kind of setups, this is basically that but DIY'd. So it's a space to put down any events, any tasks, any reminders, any to-dos that you have for the upcoming week, and you can kind of use it as a working to-do list and reminder thing. This is really where I spend most of my time in my journals, is on my weekly spreads. So it's mostly a task list for me. It's mostly just where I'm writing down my to-do lists and crossing them off, but I also have things like, it's bin night, don't forget to put the bin out, or it's Mitsu, my cat's birthday, don't forget to give him his favorite breakfast, that kind of thing. I work from home and I'm self-employed, so I can kind of just leave this out on my desk. I'll leave it open on the week that is the week that we're living in and just kind of use it as the week goes by, and that works really well for me. Of course, there are days that have more tasks and to-dos than others, and I'm okay with that. Just those will be less heavily filled in the journal. That is just fine for me. I know some people do prefer to save some paper by daily logging instead, so you'll just use the amount of space that is necessary for that day, but I'm okay with using up a bit of space. We kind of have to remember that this is also my job, filming my journal things and putting it on the internet, so having something pretty is just as important for me in so many ways as having something that functions. Obviously because I want people to watch it, but also I enjoy pretty things too, so it's a win-win. Onward to the first of the full weekly spreads. I am going to have to get a bit creative in coming up with different ones. I usually will vary my weeklies and I'll try and make each one different over the course of a month. I have not been able to do that this month. I also don't usually set up all of my weeklies in one go like this, but we're going to in this video. I do it for the mystery journal, which is a journal that I set up for 6 months and then give away. But for my own journal, typically I'll do the first one and then I'll do the rest as needed. I try to do them on live streams, but I am a busy gal and sometimes I just don't end up having the time to do a live stream to set up my weekly. So mostly this past year, I have been doing them just kind of in my own time or at journaling meetups that I go to with some friends. But I thought we'd do them all together in the video this time, so bunch of weeklies coming at ya. Despite the fact that I just set up a spread for the first 4 days of the month, I've still managed to number the first 2 boxes wrong here. I just realized, see me flipping back and being like, oh no, what have I done? It's okay, I can change the top one into a 5 fairly easily, but I'll come back with my white paint marker and fix that later. So the setup of this weekly is quite straightforward. I've just divided each page into 4, so divided it in the middle vertically and also in the middle horizontally. That's given me 8 spaces across the whole spread, but I only need 7 for 7 days of the week, so I'm going to use one of them to make some pretty decoration, a little vignette in the corner. Thankfully, even though these pages are a bit creamier than the journals I've used in the past few years, my white paint marker still blends really nicely with the page, which is great. And this is a chance for me to use some of the bigger stickers from these sticker rolls because they can be a bit tricky when you're working in a much smaller notebook. Just decorating this top left corner would feel a bit unbalanced to me though, so I'm also going to scatter a few smaller stickers around just in the gaps, just like a little one here and there. And my kitty cat Mitsu, my quality control manager, would like you to know that this spread is Mitsu approved. He also wanted me to know that I should stop working on it immediately because he was hungry. Thanks. Sorry about the cat head obscured view for a little bit here. He will go get his dinner in a second and we will get back to work in a way that you can see. I wasn't super sure that my Pentel brush sign pen here would dry down over the top of the paint marker, so I stuck a little bit of clear tape over the top just to stop things from transferring and smearing, and we're going to move on to our next weekly spread. This one is going to be horizontally oriented rather than vertically like the previous. Most A5 doc grid journals have 37 doc grid spaces from top to bottom on the page, and traveler size notebooks like this one are actually pretty much the same height, so the same doc grid spaces from top to bottom as you would find in an A5, which is handy for me. Unfortunately, 37 doesn't divide by 4 very well. But I knew I wanted to have space for 4 days worth of planning on each side of this spread. So I'm adding a note spread to kind of balance this out, bring us up to 8, but I'm also going to leave a tiny bit of space at the bottom of the spread, and that space I'm just going to use to add some decoration. So the planning space for each day here is 8 doc grid spaces from top to bottom, and I've also left 1 blank doc grid space at the very top of the page as well, which is going to give me space to add some extra finishing touches later, but for now when we set this one up, we'll just add the decoration right down the bottom. I also wasn't sure how much negative space, how much kind of blank page I wanted to leave in between each of the weekly planning spaces, so I was doing my little second line highlights with my markers, just 3 rows of them, 1 on the title and 2 underneath, but I will come back and fill that in as well. I'm just going to erase my pencil lines before I move on, and if you don't have one of these kneaded erasers in your life, they're kind of like putty that you can squish around into different shapes, you gotta get one. They're so good. They don't leave any of those eraser crumbs, they don't smudge anything terribly that Obviously, like if a pen smudges, like a gel pen or something, it's going to smudge, but these ones don't kind of smudge the eraser around, you know? They're just really good erasers. I do recommend them wholeheartedly. I'm going the easy way as far as decoration for this one. I'm just using this strip of washi, but because the design is a little bit taller than the space that I have, I'm going to use a cutting tool thingy, one of these straight edge cutting tool thingies, and I'm just going to use that to trim off the bottom so that this tape is exactly the right width for what I need. We have 2 more weeklies left to set up for January, but because I am very new to this notebook size, I'm actually just going to recycle the 2 we've already done, but I will approach the decoration differently, so even though they will function in the exact same way, they'll look a little bit different. This first one also divides the spread into 8, just like we did earlier, but instead of having the decoration in the top left corner, I'm going to have it down the bottom right instead. You could absolutely forego having a decoration space at all, and you could have an extra notes area if you prefer that kind of thing. I don't find that I need notes that often. Sometimes I just use it for aesthetic purposes, but in this journal, I don't have a great deal of room for decoration, so I've kind of got to squeeze it in where I can. I'm also not adding the second line highlights all the way through this one. I'm doing it in what I call my SWOT analysis weekly setup, where it's just a clean line instead that divides things. It almost looks like I've done a grey second line highlight on screen, but that's actually just a little bit of ghosting from the previous page, which doesn't bother me at all. It's interesting that it comes through grey, isn't it? I have added a line of colour behind each of my headings for this spread, but that's about it as far as colour, so I'm going to be sprinkling some more of the tiny flowers around this spread too. And our final weekly for January is again a horizontal weekly, but again a different take on decorating the exact same page that we did before. So using the fine liner to divide the horizontal spaces this time instead of using the second line highlights to do that. I won't be including a notes section this time. Instead, I'm going to decorate the top left corner with my flowers because I think that will be so pretty. And I'm going to add some medium-sized flowers all around this spread too. I'm going to place one within each of my horizontal planning spaces, and I'm going to alternate which side they go on, so they'll just kind of be floating. Once again, I have some extra space at the very bottom of the spread, so I'm going to fill that in with my pink washi tape. I've actually finished up one of them. It's just technically a different color, but they're similar enough that I think I can get away with it. I typically won't unroll washi tapes onto cards like this if I think there's something that I might in the future at some point want to declutter and destash, but when it's a solid colored tape like this, there is always going to be an opportunity, so those ones get to stay in my collection indefinitely. One thing that I am finding a little bit tricky with this spread though is balancing the visual weight, because I have black flowers here that I'm balancing around pink and orange ones, and black has quite a bit more visual weight than those pastel colors, so I have to make sure that I'm spreading them around quite evenly, trying to be a bit careful about my flower placement with this one. Forever flipping back to the previous spread to work out which day I'm up to when I'm setting up my weeklies, and then just hoping and praying that I got the numbers right on the spread before. Most of the time it goes okay. Funnily enough, this being the very last spread that we're going to set up together for this theme, this has ended up being my favorite of all of the spreads in the setup. I just think it looks really lovely and whimsical. We're not quite ready for a flip through from start to finish though, because I have a few finishing touches that I want to add to some of the spreads that we've already put together. Sometimes you don't know until you've finished the setup where you need to fill in extra little spaces and gaps. So we're going to go back to this page. This was the previous horizontal weekly, and I'm going to cut some stickers to go along the top of the spread to sort of mimic what the flowers are doing down the bottom. It was just a bit too bare, a bit too empty, and I did actually manage to use one of the stickers from the very end of one of the washi tape rolls, which is always a good feeling. When those ones come cut off, you think there's no way I'm going to be able to find a place to use this, but I managed it for this one. That's almost unheard of. I am a huge fan of cutting stickers to put them along the edge of things like this. I think it's a really effective way to use them, especially if you're working with a limited amount, because you can kind of get double the bang for your single sticker buck. I know it's a bit uncomfortable sometimes, but I promise you once you cut your first sticker, you'll never go back. Same with cutting Dutch doors and windows and things into your journals. It is so satisfying, and I promise once you try it, it's not as scary as it seems. Does this not look way cuter than before? I definitely think so. And then we're going to come back to the content planner as well. I just feel like it didn't have any color represented besides the flowers, so I decided to go in with my marker and just highlight that first row in orange. I was a little concerned that the Tom Studio Ren ink would bleed and smear a little bit, and it did, but like barely, so little that it's not even really that visible, so that's great. And I also thought I would highlight every second row of the content planner. That will help me find my way around a little bit better, and it will bring some color to the spread. And now we're finished and we can flip through everything from start to finish. I had so much fun working in this smaller journal to set up January. I think it turned out really pretty. And hopefully, if you're also working in a smaller journal for 2026, or even if you're working in a much bigger one than this, I hope you got some ideas you can take into your own journal. Don't forget to let me know what size journal you're working in for 2026. I would love to know. I love to talk all things journal, so jump in the comments and let's have a chat. This will be my last upload for 2025, so I wanted to take the opportunity to say thank you for being here, whether you've been with me for the whole year or just for part of it. I so appreciate you sticking around and watching my videos. I hope you have a beautiful New Year's celebration if that's something you're into, or a lovely cozy night in if that's more your style. I can't wait to see you again in 2026, but if you're still looking for some January theme planning, here is another video that is all about January 2026. This one is in the mystery journal in an A5, and under that is another video YouTube thinks that you might enjoy.